Our sponsored by the Delta Word Weavers. She started just a couple years ago in 2017, just after retiring, with the Stage Bridge organization. She took some classes, but you have certainly been making up for lost time because you've been performing at Better Said Than Done, 6 Feet Apart Productions, the Oakland Story Slam, the Moth at the Freight and Salvage. That's a stage that's in front of about 600 people. That'll get your heart pounding. And of course, with the Orinda Tail Spinners, the Delta Word Weavers, Silk Road, and the Marsh Theater. Claire likes to tell true personal stories, a la the Moth, I suppose, right? And she has a few stories of the Lou Garou legends. And those are from Arcadia. He lived in Arcadia and migrated to Louisiana. These are where the stories were from and their path they took.
Diaspora, yeah.
Diaspora. And her work career was in technology at Fortune 500 companies. Favorite Halloween candy? Good one. Homemade caramel apples, minus the razor blades. Please welcome to the Genre Tales stage, Claire Castell.
Well, thank you. And that was a great story, Kathy. It's always tough to follow such a great teller. My story is called The Chapel of the Chimes. Now, at the end of Piedmont Avenue in Oakland, there are 2 beautiful final resting places. One is the Mountain View Cemetery, and it's 226 acres of beautifully landscaped rolling hills, and it's designed by Frederick Law Olmsted, who designed Central Park. I happen to love walking in cemeteries, and this one in particular, which some people find is creepy. But Mountain View Cemetery has some really famous occupants. We've got the Folgers, the Crockers, the Ghirardellis, and famous victims of murder, like the Black Dahlia. And the other beautiful resting place is the Chapel of the Chimes Columbarium. And that's where my father and his parents' ashes are interred. Now, when I go walking in Mountain View Cemetery, I usually stop at the columbarium after my walks to leave flowers in my father's niche. And, it's a beautiful place, tranquil gardens, cloisters, alcoves, and it's all designed by Julia Morgan. Well, one day, a couple of years ago, I set out to go out on a walk in the cemetery, and it was fall like now, and it was sunny though, not raining like today. And as I headed into the cemetery, I had to drive past the columbarium. And I noticed that there was a funeral going on at the Chapel of the Chimes. And, I really hoped it would be over when I got back because I didn't want a bunch of people around. I went ahead and I drove in the driveway to the Mountain View, and I parked and I walked a while. And as I do, I like to explore different places, and I looked at names and dates and, finding the little headstones with a lamb, which means a child died there. Now, that day, there wasn't very many visitors, but not far from where I was exploring, there was a young woman with long brown hair tied up in a ponytail, sitting under a tree. She's in her early 20s, and she's dressed in black bike shorts and a flamingo pink jersey. Now, some of you know me. I'm kind of a person who strikes up conversations easily. And I was about to go over there and chat her up. But I noticed that she was staring at her lap. She was leaning against the tree. I thought, oh, she's kind of serious. Maybe she's grieving for somebody. This is a cemetery. So I finished my walk and I didn't bother her. Now, before I go to the columbarium, I needed to get some flowers for my father's niche. So I walked to the corner florist shop where I bought some marigolds, and I was really happy with these bright orange marigolds. And I stepped out in the crosswalk to cross the other street, and a black sedan ran a red light and came careening down the road and nearly hit me. I couldn't see the driver. I said some words I can't say here. So I caught my breath. Guess I'm alive. I walked back to the columbarium and I saw that the funeral was over. It looks a little quiet. And so that was good. But I slipped up the stairs. There's one flight of stairs to the California room where my father is. So I zipped up there with my marigolds. And there's a little place to prepare your flowers for the niches. And I was in there and I saw that same young woman. It was the same woman in the cemetery. She had long brown hair and a ponytail, black bike shorts, and a bright pink jersey. Now she looked confused, staring and and now I feel like I really know her. So I go, "Oh, hi there. Are you lost? This place can be such a maze. It's easy to get turned around. Can I help you find something?" At first she doesn't answer, but then she says, Haggerty. Oh, well, I haven't seen a Haggerty in this room. There's not many Irish here, but if you go down to the Garden of the Cross room, there's a lot of Irish families. You go up those little steps and see where the skylight is, turn left up there and you'll see some Irish families. So I took my marigolds to my father's niche, and I assumed she went that way because she was gone. Now, after I sat there with my father for a few minutes and went downstairs, and yep, the funeral was done. It was quiet. So I took a look around. Did I mention that this chapel was built by Julia Morgan? Okay, I love architecture, and I wanted to peek in the chapel and to admire the architecture and the coffered ceilings. And I went in, and there's still a lot of flowers and pictures set up on one wall, which seem to be friends and family of the dearly departed. Well, as I headed over to look at the pictures, a woman in her 50s stood up in a pew. And I hadn't seen her, so I was a little bit startled. And she walked over to me and we were looking at the pictures. I said, "Oh, I'm really sorry to have interrupted you. I didn't mean to intrude on your loss. I love this chapel and I was curious about the funeral here too. Do you mind me asking who died?" The woman said, "Well, it was my daughter. It was a bicycle accident. Very close by, actually, right up there on the corner of Piedmont and where that florist shop is. A big black car hit her while she was bicycling, and they never caught the person driving it." Now, I'm kind of creeped out now. She and I stepped closer to look at the pictures, and I saw one that caught my eye. It was of a young woman with brown hair and a ponytail and bike shorts and pink jersey riding a bike. Who is that woman? Pointing to the picture. And the woman says, "Oh, that was my Janice, my daughter." Oh, well, I don't want to freak you out, but she looks just like a woman I saw up in the cemetery 45 minutes ago. And I saw again upstairs in the columbarium. She said, that's funny. You're the third person today to say they saw Janice. Well, it must be a coincidence. She's a lovely girl. Thank you for sharing this with me, Mrs. I didn't catch your name. Haggerty. I'm Mrs. Haggerty.
Wow, Claire. That was a beautiful story too. Such unity in it and beautiful images. And the black car, it was almost like the event was happening again too.
Yeah, it's a callback.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that story. Shags pointed out that in the chat to me that SAC has some events in some of the rooms right there at the Chapel of the Chimes. So look for those. It's apparently a very beautiful place. But thank you so much for your story, Claire.
You're welcome.
I'm going to be thinking of that.
And some of it's true.
I'm not going to ask which parts.